Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. Well, on today's show, we want to talk a little about fallow acres. Now, whether you intended at the start of the year to have your fallow acres, or if it just worked out that way, unfortunately, and you weren't able to plant some ground, you're probably considering, hey, what do I need to do for weed control the rest of this year? Should it be tillage? Should it be with herbicide? We want to kind of talk through that a little bit with you today.
Well, if I had fallow, I probably wouldn't worry as much about this pest, corn rootworm beetles, but if I've got corn in my rotation, it is something to be concerned about. We'll talk about the importance of this insect and how to stop it.
We've got a winter annual, that's your hint for this week's Weed of the Week. We have an iron talk coming up later in the show as well, but first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we want to talk about the two different types of soybeans that are found in the United States, indeterminate and determinate.
When we look at the difference between indeterminate beans and determinate beans, the big thing is with determinate beans, they will do all their vegetative growth first, then they will begin to flower. With indeterminate soybeans, they will do vegetative growth until the day length begins to shorten. So once we get past that longest day of the year and we move into the end of June, first part of July, that triggers indeterminate soybeans to begin flowering.
But the whole thing is, with the indeterminate soybeans, once they start flowering, they can continue with the vegetative stages. It is not that way with the determinate soybeans. So you're probably saying, okay, so why do I care about this? Why does a farmer care about this? Well, what it really amounts to is, in the southern United States, those people down there can raise crop just about any time of year. And maybe they want to have those beans finish before hurricane season at the end of August. Well, normally that's not going to work out with the indeterminate soybeans because they're not even going to start reproduction and any of the reproductive stages until a week or two after the day length begins to shorten, which is June 21st. So in other words, it's really the 4th of July approximately before you start seeing any flowers, and then it's a month after that or so before you start seeing any pods. So are those beans really going to finish by the end of August? Probably not a chance. So there are a number of different reasons why a farmer might want determinate or indeterminate, but for the most part, it's all the earlier soybeans. All the soybeans raised in the northern part of the United States are the indeterminate ones. Where we have a shorter growing season, then sometimes we end up with delayed planting. Like this year, there were a lot of farmers, they weren't able to plant till June. Okay, well, fall is coming. There's not a lot of time. The plant senses, it starts growing, but then it senses, ooh, day length is getting shorter. I better hustle it up here, start the reproductive stages, but still at the same time, grow vegetative stages.
So for farmers, when they're picking soybean seed, they'll certainly look at determinate varieties or indeterminate varieties, depending on where they're at in the country. If they're about right down the middle of the country, that's kind of the line, north and south, where farmers will start choosing. Maybe it's towards the southern end of Missouri, for example, where guys start planting group 4 soybeans. And once you get up over into the 4s, okay, it's gonna start moving into some different germplasm. And once you get up into the 5s, it's pretty much all determinate varieties. So in the 4s, there may be some that are determinate and some that are not. Once you're down into the 2s, 3s, 1s, earlier maturing beans that we'd plant in the north, for sure, those are going to be indeterminate varieties. So the cutoff line for most farmers, they say, well, if it's a 5, I know it's going to be a determinate. If it's a 4, it's probably an indeterminate bean.
Well, for our Weed of the Week, there's no discussion about determinate or indeterminate. There's only a discussion about how are we going to control it. We'll talk about it later in the show.
With new seed traits and chemistries entering the market, your crop protection equipment needs precision and adaptability. Hypro Innovative Spray Technologies has the products to give your applications greater accuracy, less drift, and more coverage. Hypro, right on technology, right on target.
The experience from the salesman to the building crew all the way through was just pleasant and professional. I feel that the people at Morton are my friends. I'll do anything for them because I felt they met that with me.
I wouldn't have anybody build me a building other than Morton. I wouldn't even consider anybody else.
It pays to go look around, but by far Morton's got the best building and we're just so pleased with it.
Contact Morton Buildings today during our Building Value Days sales event. Find the building of your dreams at mortonbuildings.com.
Apply Gypsoil on your farm to add cost-effective sulfur to soils and improve soil structure. Gypsoil increases calcium and helps flush excess magnesium in tight soils, improve air and water infiltration, and reduce problem wet spots and crusting. Better soil quality means better water quality, so Gypsoil is good for the environment too. For more information about putting Gypsoil to work on your farm, call 866-GYPSOIL or 497-7645. Visit online at gypsoil.com.
Attention farmers, are you able to sell your grain for a premium? Your local Agri-Dry dealer can show you how farmers are seeing a return on their investment with Agri-Dry products this year. Higher test weights, even distribution of forage material, and target moisture premiums are all benefits Agri-Dry customers are seeing on their grain sales tickets this year. Are you ready to start making more money on your stored grain? Visit agridryllc.com to find your local dealer today.
Are you looking for an easy way to apply dry powdered products to your stored grain? Do you want to use the applicator recommended by industry leaders for products like Diacon-D and other dry powder products? Changing Time CT applicators successfully apply a diversity of products quickly, easily, and accurately. The innovative CT applicators are designed to give you the most accurate application of products such as talc, inoculants, fertilizers, and other dry products. For commercial use or on the farm, you need the applicator industry leaders are using. CT applicators for the changing times.
Technology is constantly changing the way we farm. Hi-Pro innovative spray technologies are here to keep your farm at the forefront of agricultural innovation. With spray application equipment for any scenario, Hi-Pro is here to put you right on technology, right on target.
Corn rootworm beetles. There are many different types. Northern, western, southern. Doesn't make a whole lot of difference. What we care about is, hey, if you see corn rootworm beetles, you had rootworms feeding in your corn, number one. And number two, those corn rootworm beetles can cause a problem coming up here over the course of the next month. So let's talk about what these things do and why we want to control them and how we're going to control them.
Corn rootworm beetles are the adult stage of the corn rootworm. When we think about corn rootworms, a lot of times we think about the larvae stage that's feeding down on that root system. And when we're talking about yield robbing abilities, that's the worst part of this bug most years. So we're looking at the root feeding. Now, once those larvae have completed their cycle of life, they're going to emerge from the ground as these adult beetles. They look similar to a ladybug, generally a little longer, thinner than what you'll see with most ladybugs. And these corn rootworm beetles, as Brian said, there are many different types of them, so they're going to look different. There's going to be different colors, different markings on them and all that, and that's fine. We can control them all just the same, and as far as I'm concerned, between the northerns, westerns, southerns, they all do similar damage to the root system. Their life cycle may change just a little bit with extended diapause and all that with certain types of these bugs. But the important thing right now is you've got adult beetles. They're very easy to kill. And if you do kill the beetles before they lay eggs, you're not going to see more rootworms out in your field. So stopping them now is a great time to get it done.
Well, the other reason why you want to get it done now is just because of pollination. It's very possible if you have so many rootworm beetles, they could chew down those silks and you don't have good pollination. It's going to take a lot of beetles though, so it's rare when we see that problem. But in terms of control, the best thing you can do is go out there and spray an insecticide. Silencer, for example, costs $2 an acre for the full rate. But the whole thing is a lot of people deal with spider mites or they worry about mite flare-ups at this time of year, so you may consider using a bifenthrin product, something like Capture, Brigade. But if you're in the southern part of the United States, maybe on the west coast, east coast, that might not cut it for spider mite control. You might have to use something else. But the whole point is you can go dirt cheap. $2 an acre. Silencer is going to control these beetles. It's just if you need to control other bugs, you might have to switch products.
So here's the big thing. When you're out scouting your fields, don't just look for signs of feeding on the above ground portion of the plant. That's oftentimes not going to tell you very much. There can be problem insects like these corn rootworm beetles that are out in your field, And hey, you know, this isn't the life cycle or the stage of their life cycle where they're causing all this damage to your crop. It was the larvae stage where they caused all the damage. Now they're not chewing your leaves off or anything like that, but if you're seeing a lot of these beetles, take note. If you're seeing beetles, you had a rootworm larvae problem. You can do some root digs out in your field and see the damage for yourself if you want, but right now here's a great time to control those beetles.
So in summary here, with corn rootworm beetles, yes, they aren't, the beetle stage at least isn't the most harmful pest ever, but when you see them out there, and there are quite a few, and let's say you're out spraying anyway, you want to spray a fungicide or a foliar fertilizer or an extra shot of something, anything, you can throw some insecticide in, get those beetles under control. That's going to mean you're going to have fewer rootworms next year. You're going to have less risk of poor pollination. So there are some good things that come with that for a very small price. I would say too, you know, when you see a lot of rootworm beetles, then you also need to be thinking about, hey, I had a corn rootworm problem this year. Okay, apparently my trait didn't do it or my insecticide didn't do it. I'd start making some alternative plans going forward, because I can almost guarantee you lost some yield if you see lots of beetles from that early rootworm larvae feeding.
Well, and you talk to your seed provider and say, hey, you know what, here was the trait that I used, and I've got some beetles out there, so it didn't get them 100%.
Right.
Guess what? If you're spraying insecticide right now, you're killing the resistant beetles. So
Right.
instead of having them go reproduce more, lay more eggs, and have more of a resistance issue next year, maybe you can stop a lot of that problem right now. I'm not suggesting you can completely stop it, but hey, if you wipe out all those beetles that got through that BT trait, that's a good thing for your farm.
Well, as long as you do it quickly, because you want to do it before they lay eggs. After they've laid the eggs, all it is a revenge kill. You're not going to get, you're not going to do yourself a whole lot of good. So make sure as soon as you're seeing those rootworm beetles, if you're going to be out there anyway, or if you want to make a special trip, get them under control.
One other thing you'll certainly want to get control of in your fields is our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
There are trillions of hardworking microbes right beneath your feet. Today, Monsanto BioAg is harnessing the power of microbes, creating microscopic farmhands that help plants access nutrients, enhance root and shoot growth, and handle stressful conditions throughout the season, protecting and maximizing your yield potential. We're turning 500 trillion microbes into 500 trillion new farmhands, ready for work. Nature, it's powerful technology.
With the success of the Case IH Tiger Quad Track and Magnum Road Track tractors, it's no secret why Case IH is the leader of the track. So it wasn't surprising when the competition started imitating us. But only Case IH offers a 5-axle design to give you a smoother ride, more power to the ground, with less berming and compaction. Still, we're flattered. In fact, if we weren't already red, we'd be blushing.
Being a farmer means securing your land and livelihood for the future. Harvest Solutions from Capello USA have the grit to get you there. Our product lines for corn, sunflowers, and forage are designed for efficiency and longevity, preventing harvest loss while minimizing maintenance and downtime. To do everything you can to advance your farmland to the next generation, call us at 855-CAPELLO or visit us at capellousa.com. Capello USA, Italian craftsmanship, American grit.
We have a school and a church nearby. I actually go to the classroom to educate the students about what's going on here on my farm. The system that I have, I tie everything together. No-till, cover crops. We applied AgriLiquid in furrow with our soybeans this year. It seemed like they jumped out of the soil, even though we had the record rainfall. I really feel that I'm feeding my plant on a consistent year-round basis throughout the growing season.
A farmer's attention to detail is what makes the difference. You take the time for service management because you know how vital it is to your operation. You service your field like everything else because soil sampling makes all the difference and gets the results you want. Download the app Soil Test Pro and start grid sampling today. Keep your farm growing strong. The more you test, the more you know.
This time of year we get a lot of questions from guys who are in a chem fallow situation where they're raising a crop and then they've got a fallow year, they're spraying chemicals out there to control the weeds. and they're just sick of spraying that field or sick of doing tillage out in that field. Hey, give me an option of something I can just put out there so the weeds don't keep coming back.
All right, so the whole thing is with the fallow situation. I think you have to also ask yourself, do I really need fallow? Is it possible I could start raising a crop? And I guess we would just encourage you, yeah, maybe it's always been chem fallow in your area. At least be trying some stuff. I mean, the worst that can happen is, oh, I had a few acres, it didn't pan out real good. But I'd keep experimenting with that, because we found a lot of people around the country, as they've gone to reduced tillage, crops that are better at utilizing little moisture in the soil, they can actually do pretty well. Here's the other thing. Weed control is ultra important in those drier areas of the country. Now, you might say, well, my fallow is because I had too much moisture and then I wasn't able to plant. Well, either way, here's the deal. Tillage is problematic because it creates more potential for erosion. So that's why we talk so much about herbicide. And just to get off topic for a second, I love how people who call themselves environmentalists say, well, we shouldn't use any herbicides. Mr. Farmer, don't use herbicides. I say, okay, I won't use herbicides, I'll just go out and till. You know what happens when there's tillage. You have way more chance for wind erosion and rain erosion. So, I mean, there's no perfect answer to this whole thing. What we're trying to say here is, if you want to reduce the tillage, and for that matter, possibly even reduce your cost, because you might not have to run over that field very many times when using the right herbicide, hey, this is certainly an option you should at least be thinking about.
All right, let's talk about what some of these herbicides you might consider using are that will give you longer control. Because let's face it, if you're spraying 2,4-D, dicamba, Roundup, okay, Roundup, no residual, 2,4-D, dicamba, a low level of residual, maybe for a week or two. It's no huge thing most times, and you're going to see weeds breaking through that. What about something that might give me a month? Wow, if I could just have a month where my field stays clean and I don't have to spray, that would be something good. Well, the first thing you're gonna have to look at is what crop are you gonna come back in? And if you say, well, I'm gonna come back with wheat this fall. All right, we've gotta find something that we can rotate to wheat in this time window. If you say, well, I'm gonna plant wheat in September, great. You got a couple of months, 2-3 months, depending on where you're at in the country. What can I use that can get me that gap?
Here's the other thing. What's your soil like? If you have real adverse conditions, so for example, let's say you have an 8.5 pH or a 4.2 pH. Let's say you have really high salt levels in your soil. Let's say you have that poor drainage issue where I was flooded out, so I just can't get my crop in. In all those cases, here's the trouble. With the bacteria in the soil that would normally break down a herbicide, if they're not as active as normal, that is going to extend the life of that herbicide. Now, you may want it to be extended more, but when Darren talks about rotation, you got to be thinking, okay, if this says 6-month window to plant to a certain crop and it's going to be exactly 6 months, maybe you're kind of pushing it in those adverse soil conditions.
Well, what if you don't get any rainfall? What if you're in an area you say, well, I only get 6 to 10 inches of rain in the whole year? Am I safe to follow this? Well, 6-month rotational window and I'm 6 months ahead. I don't know if I'm going to get herbicide to break down if I only get 6 inches of rain. And what if it's one of those years where I only get 1 inch of rain? Then that herbicide, chances are, is probably still out there. So you've got to use a lot of caution when you're in an area that just doesn't get enough rainfall to get things to break down.
All right, let's talk about some of the most popular products for a wide variety of crops. Valor is probably number one that I think about. 3 ounces of Valor. It doesn't cost all that much money. You'll probably spend in that $15 an acre range, and possibly a little bit less if you're getting some rebates or you get some deal on it, whatever. But here's the whole thing. You're going to have several months residual out of that. Now, it might not be complete killing residual the whole way through, but you'll at least see weed suppression for several months down the road. And the good thing with Valor is you can rotate to a lot of different crops. It doesn't stay in the soil forever or anything like that. But I like Valor because it has burn down activity and it does have residual control.
And Valor is one of those products that you can mix with a lot of things. You can put 2,4-D with it, or you can put Roundup with it, and that does enhance the burn. So you are going to get faster burn down as well. Plus you'll get that soil residual control. Where I get concerned is when people start talking about products like atrazine. That's a whole different topic.
The biggest problem with atrazine is just groundwater contamination. I know that the LD50 is 3,000, the LD50 on table salt is also 3,000, okay? They're equal. But still, people don't want atrazine in the water, and the problem with atrazine is it leaches. So why use atrazine? Yes, it can kill some weeds, but Valor can kill more weeds, and we don't have to worry about that groundwater thing. The other problem with atrazine is if you have a high pH, you can have more of a potential carryover issue, potential crop damage issue next year. So we're not big on atrazine as a chem fallow thing. I know that used to be a popular deal. We absolutely would not do that. Use Valor or something else if you want some residual.
Also, avoid those products like Tordon and Milestone, and we see Ally get used quite a bit in these situations where guys say, oh, well, I've got this particular tough weed. Maybe it's a thistle. And you say, well, that works great on thistle in my pasture. I'll just put it out in these thistle patches here and control that once and for all. And it's going to do a nice job controlling the weed, there's no question. But you're going to see some impacts from some of these herbicides that shouldn't be used in different crops for a long time out in your field. So just avoid the super long lasting products. Look at things that have a shorter residual window to maybe buy you a few weeks to a month. That's really what you should be looking for.
Well, one of the things you should also be looking for out in your chem fallow situation, just like in your fields, is our Weed of the Week. We'll tell you how to stop it coming up next. Weed of the Week is Shepherd's Purse.
All right, we gave a hint away right away at the start of the show. This is a winter annual weed. So the best time to get Shepherd's Purse under control, the best time to scout for it is in the fall. That's when it's going to germinate and get a start. Oftentimes in the spring, when we're out there and we think, oh, it's just finally starting to thaw out in the spring, we've got Shepherd's Purse that's already up, and then it's too big for us to kill with a low rate Roundup burn down. That's where we see more problems with this reduced tilled situations where guys are using a cut rate of Roundup out too early when it's cool in the season, and we've got this great big root system underneath Shepherd's Purse.
Well, the other thing you can do is spike something else in there. Like in front of soybeans, we talk all the time about Metribuzin, about Valor or Authority. I mean, those products have good burn down activity. You can also go to Gramoxone. But the fact remains, hey, if the weather's too cold, it's going to be hard for the herbicide to work.
All right, with Shepherd's Purse, you could certainly do tillage, and if you're doing full-scale tillage, chances are you may not even know what this weed is. If you're in reduced till, or if you've got alfalfa or something like that, you've probably seen it pop up early in the season. You may have confused it with field pennycress. We get a lot of calls every year about, hey, I've got this kind of different looking field pennycress out there. No, it's actually Shepherd's Purse.
All right, so in corn, what we would suggest is get a good burn down out there. That's where Verdict is real popular with that sharpen in there. But certainly you could use some other pre if you want. Just follow post with a good product. But the whole thing is when the Shepherd's Purse is started early, if you let it go till your normal time of spraying post, let's say V5, V6, something like that, boy, that Shepherd's Purse could be big, and in patches it could really hurt your yield. So you might want to spray just a little bit earlier. We like Status the best, but the HPPDs along with a little atrazine are pretty decent as well.
In our 3 pre-program in soybeans, that works quite well. We've got a lot of things that burn it down, Authority, Valor, Metribuzin, those kinds of products work well. Then post-emerge with your Roundup or with your Liberty, you can spike in something like FlexStar to get some more kick.
In wheat, we'd suggest Sharpen Down and Husky post-emerge.
That's all time we have for this week's weed, but Iron Talk is coming up next.
Are you looking for an easy way to apply dry powdered products to your stored grain? Do you want to use the applicator recommended by industry leaders for products like Diacon-D and other dry powder products? Changing Time CT applicators successfully apply a diversity of products quickly, easily, and accurately. The innovative CT applicators are designed to give you the most accurate application of products such as talc, inoculants, fertilizers, and other dry products. For commercial use or on the farm, you need the applicator industry leaders are using. CT applicators for the changing times.
There are trillions of hardworking microbes right beneath your feet. Today, Monsanto BioAg is harnessing the power of microbes, creating microscopic farmhands that help plants access nutrients, enhance root and shoot growth, and handle stressful conditions throughout the season. protecting and maximizing your yield potential. We're turning 500 trillion microbes into 500 trillion new farmhands, ready for work. Nature, it's powerful technology.
Introducing the SoilMax ZD48, the newest addition to the SoilMax Gold Digger lineup. The first plow designed for smaller class tractors, the ZD48 has been tested on tractors weighing between 10,000 and 16,000 pounds with excellent results. Designed for row crop farms, vineyards, irrigation, and specialty crop farms. The SoilMax ZD48 will install tile up to 48 inches deep, as well as install 3 or 4-inch tile. The ZD48 truly opens up the world of tile installation to more farms than ever before.
At Fisher Tradition Farms, we Verus all of our acres, and any new additional acres are automatically Verused. Verus maps allow us to know exactly where our soil types change and how much they change. We use AgroLiquid's Enhance, High Energy N, and Access that allows us to add sulfur. We can customize our AgroLiquid products on a per pound, per acre basis as needed.
Ever wonder if you are over-drying or spoiling your grain when you turn on the fans? Do you worry about the condition of your grain all winter long? Are you able to see what is happening in your bins? AgroDry will give you peace of mind with our 24-hour monitoring system. View real-time grain bin data online from a web-enabled device. AD-Link will send you alerts when sensors are triggered by potential grain problems. Stop worrying and start storing quality grain with AgroDry. Visit agrodryllc.com today.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
The AFS Connect Farm Management System from Case IH connects you, and only you, to the information you need most from your equipment, from anywhere, at any time. AFS Connect, only from Case IH.
I had a conversation with a farmer about water management that I want to share with you in today's Iron Talk. I was visiting with a farmer in the northern Corn Belt who has been installing drain tile across his farm. His next goal was to install irrigation wherever possible so water would never again be his limiting factor for yields. One thing to keep in mind with irrigation is that the timing of rainfall is even more important than quantity. Sure, your crops need adequate rainfall to produce yield, but there are ways to make that rainfall much more efficient so you don't need as much water. For example, let's look at soybeans, a crop that loves heat and sunlight and often responds well to stress. Soybeans are pretty famous for needing late-season rains to boost yield. However, with all the pre-emerge herbicides being relied on for weed control, using irrigation early in the season has really paid dividends. For stand establishment, it's important too. Successful irrigators often plant the crop, immediately spray the pre's, and then turn the water on right away. The stands are much more even, and the herbicides work nearly every time. Then you wait. If you're getting a little more moisture throughout the season, you may be able to hold off on irrigating until the soybeans begin flowering. This allows the plant to put more energy into the seed and less on all the vegetative growth that excessive watering can lead to. It also forces the plants to send roots deeper to explore more soil, which eventually pays off when the roots need to pull lots of nutrients in all at once to boost yields. Irrigation can pay big dividends, especially when you get the timing just right in crops like soybeans. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
On your farm, you need speed and year-round effectiveness in your tillage program. The Quick Till from Norwood Sales allows you to move quickly through your fields, maximizing time and improving yield. Constructed of heavy-duty materials, the Quick Till is ideal for both spring and fall applications, from preparing a healthy seedbed early in the season to breaking up corn residue after harvest. For more information about how a Quick Till can improve fields on your farm, call Norwood Sales today.
Well, that's our show for today, but before we go, we want to invite you to tune in to the Ag PhD radio show, where we take your live phone calls each weekday on SiriusXM Channel 147 at 2 p.m. Central.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Iron Talk, Farm Basics, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Crop residues from previous crops are highly beneficial to our soils and the environment. As residues break down naturally in the soil, they release nutrients for future crops, but can also become organic matter in the soil, providing nutrient and water holding capacity and a home for soil microbes. Visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org to learn how farmers manage crop residues.